Hello and welcome to the Fit to Transform podcast, where you learn how to train and diet effectively and, most importantly, how to maintain those results for life, once and for all. I'm Nikias Tomasiello, a transgender training and nutrition coach working online with anyone who's ready for a true lifestyle transformation, anywhere they may be in the world. As a friendly reminder, any and all information provided is for educational purposes only. You should consult with your doctor before implementing any changes to your diet and exercise program. With that disclaimer out of the way, thank you for being here. Now grab yourself a cup of tea or pre-workouts and enjoy. Yo, dear listeners, hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in to this solo episode, which is going to cover 3 common trans masc physique building mistakes. Now, you know me, I am very friendly. You might not know this about me, but I'm also on a lot of Facebook groups and also on a subreddit called FTM Fitness, where I love to go through posts, answer questions, just try to help people out. I'm a yapper and I enjoy helping people at the end of the day. And I collected over time 3 mistakes that I see people routinely repeat over and over again, which I believe are holding them back from building the physique that they want. So I want to cover these 3 because a lot of you, dear listeners, are in the trans masc community, just like me, and you might have come across those mistakes yourself, maybe without knowing that they would potentially hold you back. So basically, I have heard these mistakes and I want to talk about them so that you don't have to make them. And I've also made at least one of them myself, to be fair. So let's delve right into the first one, which is bulking too soon when you're tired of cutting. And this is one I see all too often in the online space that I was talking about. People jump into a bulk because they're a bit frustrated or they're a bit tired of their fat loss phase, but they're also still feeling uncomfortable with their physique. They're still hiding their hips and their belly under layers and layers of clothes. And then after 2 months on this bulk, they feel like they've put on more fat than muscle. And this perception is completely understandable because fat tissue sits on top of muscle. So if you bulk when you still have more body fat than you're comfortable with, you may be putting on muscle, but it's still hidden under the existing layer of fat, which is now also getting thicker because you put yourself in a surplus. In addition to that, muscle growth takes time. And even in a surplus, muscle growth is going to be typically less noticeable than fat accumulation unless you're flexing or you're under very good lighting. As a result of all this, these, let's call them early bulkers, feel like they're just gaining fats and not gaining much or any muscle. So they get disheartened, and after 2 months, they go into another cut. And then 2 months later, they get tired of dieting, and then they rinse and repeat. And in truth, they're stuck losing and gaining the same 5 pounds without much fat loss or muscle gain to show for it. In my view, you're better off getting as lean as you want to be on a regular basis, or a little leaner and then bulk from there. And these are the main benefits of this approach. Number 1, you actually get to feel comfortable in the lean body that you want, instead of settling for however lean you got when you got fed up of cutting. Number 2, you also realize that even though you are lean, you're probably not as muscular as you'd like to be, which is some very powerful motivation for a bulk, let me tell you that, as somebody who routinely, every time I get to be as lean as I would like to be at the end of a fat loss phase, I think, time to bulk up now because I'm still small. And number 3, you've bought yourself several months in a calorie surplus, which will help you build far more muscle than just bulking for 2 months and then getting discouraged and cutting again. So commit to each cutting and bulking phase for as long as it takes to get results, instead of jumping between the two when you get tired of one. That is how my clients get their excellent results, by getting lean enough that they feel comfortable bulking for at least 4 to 6 months, which is, in my experience, the minimum amount of time required to make a significant difference to your physique, unless you are a genetic freak or you are on steroids. The second mistake I want to talk about, which is one I have personally made myself for years, is chronically undereating. Having suffered from a restrictive eating disorder in my adolescence and having dealt with disordered eating thoughts and behaviors in my early 20s, I ended up undereating for nearly a decade all in all. And since getting into bodybuilding, I've always felt more comfortable with cutting rather than bulking. And indeed, at the start of my physique development journey, gaining scale weight freaked me out. But you will not build as much muscle as you can without a small surplus. If your goal, I keep getting this wrong. If your goal is truly to maximize your muscle growth potential and you've already achieved a lean physique, then spending enough time in a calorie surplus will be far more beneficial than always just barely maintaining your weight or oscillating between maintaining and losing. Having said that, not everyone wants to maximize muscle growth. If you don't want to commit to cutting and bulking cycles, and you're happy with a slower rate of muscle growth, then you don't need to be in a surplus. You can train hard and gain muscle by staying at maintenance calories, which I discussed in another podcast episode with another coach called Jeff Hain. And that was episode 84, Gaining Muscle at Maintenance versus a Surplus. So listen to that if you haven't already. Anyway, saying that, your maintenance may not be what you think it is when you math it out. Some people with undereating tendencies believe that they are, in quotation marks, maintaining their weight on 1500 calories or another relatively low amount for their size, because technically they're not seeing scale weight changes. And this makes perfect sense, right? They are thinking, I'm not gaining or losing weight, therefore I must be eating at maintenance calories. Perfectly fair assumption. In theory, this is how math works. But it's also possible that their true maintenance calories may be a little higher, but their metabolism has adapted to many months or years of undereating and or overexercising. So it could be burning fewer calories than it would be capable of. And this is why it looks like the scale isn't dropping, even on a relatively low caloric intake. As a personal anecdote on this, I've had symptoms of an underactive thyroid for my entire adult life. And when your thyroid is underactive, your metabolic rate slows down. When I started bodybuilding in 2018, my symptoms were manageable, but they've worsened over time despite introducing thyroid medication and being under the care of my medical team. And my belief, which my medical team also agrees with, is that the main reason behind the worsening of my symptoms is chronic stress. And I have accumulated plenty of it in the last 15 or so years for the following main reasons. First of all, the eating disorder and the disordered eating behaviors that I had, which also involved high amounts of cardio on top of inadequate caloric intake and an inadequate amount of essential nutrients consumed. And then I've been cutting and bulking since 2018. These included two intense photo shoot preps during which I got very, very lean, which is a major stressor for the body. I've been training hard 4 to 6 times a week since 2018, mainly lifting weights. But before that, I was also doing a lot of running and a little bit of HIIT training. And outside of fitness, I've been working myself to the bone for as long as I can remember. I used to study really, really hard for hours on end, especially in high school. I used to do the same at university. And then when I started working, I straight up became a fitness coach and a personal trainer right out of the gates after university. And I have been working 6 to 7 days a week ever since. As a consequence, no wonder my chronic stress has been pretty high and also chronic, not acute or temporary. And I've estimated that as a result of that, my metabolic rate has actually slowed down by about 200 calories since 2021 because up to that year, I used to maintain my weight on around 2000 calories. But ever since then, I have easily gained weight when going above 1800 calories. So I've actually already shared this on social media, but I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast. Ever since September, and right now I'm recording this at the beginning of November, I've been in what I call a metabolic restoration phase instead of a typical cutting or bulking phase. Because my main goal right now is to help my thyroid recover from this chronically stressed state. And you might be wondering, why didn't you do this before? And the reason is that I have been studying the thyroid in depth ever since I became a coach, but more so in the last few years. And it's taken me this long to gain enough knowledge and enough data on my own body to really put all of the pieces together. And I've not had access to a medical professional who had enough of a specialism or enough specialist knowledge of the thyroid, especially in relation to bodybuilding, that could help me piece everything together. So that's why. But I'm very happy that now I am in that position, and I hope that I can help my thyroid recover. Anyway, that's enough about my personal story. The point is, don't assume you're at maintenance calories just because your weight isn't changing. And do not assume that you wouldn't benefit from gaining some weight even if you don't want to commit to a full on bulk. And the final mistake I'm going to cover for today is bulking too soon when you do not need to cut. Because not everyone needs to lose fat when they're starting their physique development journey. But this doesn't mean that a bulk is the right move for them just yet. The goal of the ideal bulk is to put on as much muscle as possible with as little fat gain as possible. So, to accomplish this, you need to know how to train with proper form, how to train close enough to failure, how to be consistent with training, and how to eat for this goal. And these skills require time and practice. As a beginner, no offense, but you're going to suck at all of them, which is absolutely normal. No beginner is amazing at a skill they've never built. Furthermore, you can make plenty of newbie gains without a calorie surplus as long as you're eating at least maintenance calories and you're focusing on having enough protein, high fiber starchy carbs, fruit, veg, and health promoting fats. In fact, you can make phenomenal newbie gains even if you were in a calorie deficit, just because you are a beginner. But here I'm talking about it in the context of somebody who would want to bulk right away. In any case, this is all to say, you may not need to bulk right now, and you may also not be ready to make the most of a bulk anyway. Which is why I never put a new client who is also a beginner in the gym on a bulk from day one of coaching. Instead, I run what I call a bulk primer phase, which in the past I also referred to as a kickstart phase. And during this period, we practice the skills that I mentioned earlier while we milk the most out of their newbie gains stage. By the end of the bulk primer or kickstart phase, the client is then more skilled and they also have a better body composition than when they started because they put on muscle with little to no added body fat. And in some cases, they may even lose body fat at the same time as gaining muscle without undergoing an official cut. And these are the body recon powers of the newbie gains stage. And I believe that this is a far better position by the end of the kickstart of bulk primer phase for them to start a bulk than the first day that they stepped into the gym. And if you want to learn more about the bulk primer or the kickstart phase, I actually wrote an article about this back in 2021. So I'm going to link to that in the notes for this episode. In conclusion, if you want to build a better physique faster, you want to avoid the three common mistakes I've been talking about: bulking too soon when you're tired of cutting, chronically undereating, and bulking too soon when you don't need to cut. And that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you very much for listening. As always, if you want to sign up for coaching, check out the links in the show notes, and I will talk to you very soon. Lastly, if you want to support the podcast and help me reach more people, please leave a 5-star rating or review on any podcast platform that you're using. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.